It's time to assemble a list of actors who thought they were the best at what they did. But in the end, when the images flickered on screen, their characters were nothing more than another punchline. Some of them only tarnished a character's reputation, while others completely destroyed franchises. Before we start, click on that subscribe button to be a part of our notification squad. Also, can you guess what these emojis are showing? Keep watching to the end to discover the answer.
Hi, hello, Lex, it is a pleasure. Ow! Wow, that is a good grip. You should not pick a fight with this person.
Jesse Eisenberg. Fans and critics alike could agree on one thing. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice kind of sucked.
What does that mean?
A poorly written script jam-packed with unnecessary subplots strained our patience, and Jesse Eisenberg's cringe performance as Lex Luthor was really, really bad.
That is silly.
It's hard for us to call out Eisenberg on his Luthor when he's turned out so many great performances in the past, from the twitchy, angsty Walt Berkman in Squid and the Whale to his witty, twitchy turn as Zuckerberg in The Social Network. There was nothing intimidating or particularly compelling about Eisenberg's portrayal of the iconic supervillain.
This is scathing.
This may explain why Luthor's master plan to trick Superman and Batman into a fight felt forced and unconvincing. That and the ridiculous circumstances leading up to it. His broad take on Lex oftentimes felt flashy and absurd, like it were a ripoff of Heath Ledger's Joker. Employing eerily similar speech patterns and mannerisms, it felt like a bad Joker parody, and that just didn't sit well with us. With such a flawed take on a great villain, we've heard rumors that Warner Brothers is considering axing Jesse from future films, or if Lex Luthor will appear in any future films at all, at least until they can find a replacement. It's really a shame because this villain was an easy write-in for future installments in the Justice League franchise. Ryan Reynolds. It has been 6 years since DC's disastrous 2011 mega flop, Green Lantern.
I know, right?
The film's superhero was portrayed by none other than Ryan Reynolds. And yes, for those out there who aren't up to date, Reynolds is the mastermind behind one of the world's most loved tragic superheroes, Deadpool. On one side of the coin, Reynolds created one of the world's most successful superhero films ever. Deadpool is also most likely on its way to becoming one of the biggest superhero franchises as well. But then conversely, he also failed miserably prior by starring in one of the worst superhero movies ever. This role essentially demolished any hope for a continued Green Lantern franchise. So what happened, Reynolds? The first obvious answer is that he learned from the failures. Secondly, in a candid interview years later, Reynolds said it was all about the script. When he auditioned for the role, he wasn't even given a script to read because one hadn't even been written yet. Emotionally, the Lantern character was all over the map. We totally understand a superhero gets depressed, but this was a bit too much. We will have to agree with Reynolds on this one, seeing as his performance as Deadpool felt like such a natural extension of the actor's own persona.
And that's why we do it, but mostly the money.
It's hammer time.
Shaquille O'Neal was a superhero once. The legendary basketball Hall of Famer Shaquille Rashawn O'Neal portrayed the Man of Steel, no, not that one, in a 1997 adaptation of the comic book series Steel. Wait, seriously? Shaquille O'Neal was a superhero? This is a joke, right? Absolutely not. This really happened. O'Neal's character was so heavily laden with cheesy dialogue, even Meryl Streep would have had trouble breathing life into this film. O'Neal's performance even earned him a unanimous butchering from critics and was rewarded with a Razzie nomination. If it hadn't been for Kevin Costner that year, he would have had it. The character's name is John Henry Irons, and was a self-made hero. Henry used technology to mimic that of Superman's natural abilities. The worst and best part of it is that as recent as 2014, O'Neal came out saying he was looking into making a sequel. This may or may not happen. Back then, superhero films weren't all the rage they are now, and even though the film only earned back $1.6 million of the $16 million budget, it could do pretty well today. These are the types of movies fans love to talk about.
Our enemies have guns. What? I don't understand. How does it work?
Seth Rogen. Don't feel too bad if you can't recall ever hearing about Seth Rogen being a superhero. He isn't even sure it happened. In his own words, the 2011 film The Green Hornet was a flipping nightmare. He might have used a different word other than flipping, so we'll let you figure that one out. Seth puts most of the blame on himself, though. He cites being too excited about making a big film before truly understanding how to make a movie of this magnitude. The cast and crew were met with major opposition from the studio. It had a $120 million budget, which meant a lot of heads were involved with the creative process. Seth was unable to take risks because the studio was afraid. Rogen just wasn't allowed to be himself on set. Rogen flat out just had a hard time conforming to the bigwigs and how they wanted to make the film. He wanted to make it his way and to be left alone. Maybe had Rogen focused more on how to work within the creative confines of the situation, The Hornet just might have seen a series develop from it.
Hi, Freeze. I'm Batman.
Every Joel Schumacher superhero. Time is said to heal all wounds. For some wounds, though, it can take a few lifetimes. Sometimes, though, the wound never heals, and all you are left with is perspective. Hard-hitting perspective with the feeling of catastrophic failure that will never heal. This must be a minute fraction of what Joel Schumacher must feel after his vision of the Batman series almost destroyed the entire franchise for good. Thank you, Christopher Nolan and Heath Ledger. Oh, you too, Christian Bale, with that deep, raspy, snarling voice of yours.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
In creating this video, there was a long list of bad superheroes which had to be dwindled down. A lot were from Joel's Batman series. He's not a bad director, he's actually a phenomenal director. However, he had a hard time adapting the 1995 Batman Forever and 97 Batman and Robin to the big screen. Yes, the actors all individually played a role, but collectively, their bad job as an actor lies with Joel. The poorly written scripts are littered with bad puns and embarrassing silliness.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
Take your pick of actors from the films. Val Kilmer, Tommy Lee Jones, Jim Carrey, George Clooney, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Chris O'Donnell, Alicia Silverstone all hit low points in their careers after delivering their hokey lines. Some never made it back. Edward Norton. Edward Norton is an actor known for playing roles with depth and charisma. Not many actors can pull off a neo-Nazi and actually elicit sympathy from audiences. Considered one of the best actors of his generation, Norton has even been nominated for 3 Academy Awards. Unfortunately, none of those skills seem to transfer over to his performance as the Incredible Hulk. In Norton's defense, playing a superhero is a completely different kind of performance. Satisfying a fan base with preconceived notions of an established character's portrayal is no easy task, no matter the actor's background. His performance received mixed reviews globally and generated a 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, with most critics citing a lack of wit and heart in Norton's character. The inner conflict of Bruce Banner was just not there. It almost seemed to feel unbelievable. Norton was originally slated to take on the role of Hulk for the Avengers series, but they ended up replacing him with Mark Ruffalo. This change seems to have paid off as Ruffalo has received critical acclaim for his take on the Hulk. Audiences can feel the struggle Hulk goes through internally with a simple glance into Ruffalo's eyes. Norton is not worried though because he has continued to receive wildly popular roles in major blockbusters. Ben Affleck. 2003's Daredevil is less an origin story of an iconic superhero's ascendancy and more of a drawn-out guide to stalking strange women, and then challenging them to duel in a playground, because apparently nobody knows how to flirt in this movie universe. Anyway, Ben Affleck earned a Razzie for his performance as Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, in this film and for his roles in Jiggly and Paycheck, which were made the same year. Years later, Affleck spoke candidly about his role and said Daredevil was the only film role he regrets. We are definitely happy Affleck has bounced back, cementing his name in Hollywood's golden history books with his directorial blockbusters and epic acting roles. While there's little hope of Daredevil returning to the big screen in the near future, Netflix has let the character thrive in Marvel's cinematic universe. The series has actually become one of the more interesting universes for Marvel. We guess they learned from their mistakes, which is probably one of the best things you can say about this film. Halle Berry. Halle Berry is a masterful actress, and as the first and only African American to receive an Academy Award for Best Actress, has earned herself a coveted spot in American cinematic history. She received the award for her portrayal in 2001's much-acclaimed Monsters Ball. Just a short 2 years later, she would go on to win Oscar's ugly cousin, the Worst Actress Razzie Award, for her performance in the dumpster fire that is Catwoman.
Oops, my bad.
As she took the stage to accept her award, looking shocked and elated, the audience erupted in applause. The enthusiasm didn't wane as she began to speak, and they applauded her entire acceptance speech. Critics and fans took issue with the character of Catwoman, who they felt had been taken too literally by the filmmakers. Along with being supernaturally strong and agile, her character could fall from great heights and land on her feet unharmed. She would get overly excited about catnip, hiss at dogs, and could squeeze through narrow gaps. In what we kindly refer to as an offbeat scene, she can be seen laying in bed devouring cat food. We don't know. Like we said, it's a dumpster fire. Luckily, Halle's fall from grace was short-lived and, like the eponymous Catwoman, managed to land on her feet. Henry Cavill. Since donning Superman's famous red cape, critics and fans have had mixed feelings about Henry Cavill's tenure as the Man of Steel. They seem split on whether or not he is doing the iconic role justice. What everyone can agree on, however, is this. Cavill is the spitting image of what Superman should look like, and this is a big problem for fans and critics. He's almost too perfect. While Superman is supposed to be an unstoppable, almighty being, Clark Kent is a dorky, modest reporter who gets giddy talking to girls, and it is here that Cavill falls short. He has a stone-cold vibe throughout the films, which suits his Superman persona, but is too stiff a garment for Kent. Maybe Christopher Reeve's take on the mild-mannered reporter has tainted our expectations, but Clark should be played as a bit of a clumsy doofus and not some cool and collected eyewear model. Now, we are by no means saying Cavill is responsible for the critical failure of the Superman series. There is plenty of blame to go around. We're just saying his take on Clark doesn't help, nor the sullen atmosphere of the film, which unfortunately seeps into his disappointing performance as Mr. Kent. Dragon Ball Evolution. Kids who grew up watching Dragon Ball Z in the 90s are now watching the show with their own kids, sharing old trading cards, costumes, toys, and other merchandise. It transcends generations. With so much revenue potential, this makes the transition from television to the big screen a natural progression. The calculus is simple. Hire some writers to adapt the more compelling storylines from the original show, cast a talented group of young actors and a director who grew up loving all things Dragon Ball, and you got yourself a multi-billion-dollar franchise on your hands. Right? Unfortunately, this was not the case. In 2009, Dragon Ball Evolution was released to the world and flopped hard, really hard. So what went wrong? First off, the filmmakers completely whitewashed all of the Japanese manga characters.
I'm Goku.
Including fan-favorite Goku, the protagonist of the franchise, upsetting critics and fans globally. Then, as if to rub salt into the wound, the cast ignored the spirited personalities with subdued, unenthusiastic performances. Characters that are supposed to be filled with high energy and enthusiasm. Needless to say, this left audiences feeling bored and alienated. Hopefully, the filmmakers learn from these mistakes and avoid the same pitfalls on the next film. Fans are craving a legit Dragon Ball Z film franchise, and we know there are writers and at least one director who can pull it off. Which actor do you think is the baddest of them all? Leave us your comments below, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button and sling this video to all your friends. And of course, here's the answer to the emoji question. Did you get it right?
Thank you for coming.